What's going on, guys? We're here. We're doing it. We're talking Joker, Folie, Deux, and all the spoiler goodness. I'm going to have a couple people coming through on here as well. I've got one guy in here already. I see you there, Michael. Thank you so much for joining, man. I'll bring you in just a second. Just going to set the stage here a little bit because it's been a little bit since I've done a live spoiler discussion. And it's not that I don't like to do live spoiler discussions. I think they're a lot of fun. When it comes to a movie like this, though, when it comes to Joker, Folie, Deux, which I was highly anticipating. I mean, honestly, this was like my last highly anticipated film for the entire rest of the year. So going into the showing, when I went in on Thursday, there was a fan showing early for people on Monday. So people had already seen the movie, and this thing was getting trashed, and it continues to get trashed. Joker, Folie, Deux is not landing well with a lot of people, the fans, the critics. In fact, I saw today, this kind of shocked me. Not the Rotten Tomatoes score. We'll talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score here because the Rotten Tomatoes score for Joker, Folie, Deux has dropped to 33%, and the audience score has dropped to 30%. Now, when I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score when I was going into my screening, I heard that it was, trash, and I was already seeing a bunch of YouTube thumbnails, disaster, terrible film, what happened to Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix. But it was at a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I thought, all right, you know what? I'm going to go in with an open mind, and I'm sure it can't be that bad. And then look at here, the Rotten Tomatoes score has dropped drastically. So people are really not liking this movie, to the point that I actually saw this today, and this shocked me because if you look here on Variety, they're saying that on Cinema Score, Joker 2 earns a D Cinema Score, the lowest ever for a comic book movie. Joker, Folie, Deux has fallen flat after earning a D Cinema Score, the lowest grade ever from the research firm for a comic book movie. The previous record holder was 2015's Fan Four Stick, which received a C- Cinema Score. Meanwhile, Folie, Deux' predecessor, the 2019 original Joker from director Todd Phillips, earned a B+ grade through the research firm survey of early crowds. So it has completely lost its audience. the Joker, Folie, Deux has completely lost its audience. And so with all of this going into the movie, I was honestly walking out of the movie. We'll talk about that ending. Because when I saw the ending, I walked out of this movie completely perplexed and baffled. If you saw my first thoughts, you kind of already know. I didn't have much good things to say about it because all the goodwill just left my head when we got to, well, it's a spoiler talk, when they freaking killed Arthur at the end. And they didn't just kill Arthur at the end. They had some random guy do it. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. I've got another guest in here waiting as well. The Ace, I see you there, man. We're going to get to it, man. So just setting the stage a little bit more. When I was thinking over the movie over the past 3 days since I've seen it, a lot of the goodwill started to peek its head, and it became a movie that I'm very excited to just discuss. It's nowhere near my favorite movie of the year, nowhere near, but it is currently my favorite movie to talk about because I often say on this channel that one of the things that I really love about movies, the discussion of movies in particular, is how two people or a group of people can go into the same dark room, have the same images flash before their eyes, come out, and either have the exact same experience, the exact opposite experience, and that gets me excited to talk about movies. And the fact that this thing is hardly even divided, it's just completely being thrown into the gutter, which I personally don't believe it deserves. There's a lot of talk with this movie about how Todd Phillips didn't even try. They just came back and gave us nothing. They trolled the fans. They hate the fans, which, if you're looking at it from a meta perspective, I can see how people got there. But for me personally, I did not have that experience. I thought this movie was very consistent with the first film, being how the first film was really about this damaged, broken man, Arthur. You watch him all throughout the movie. It's one of the most miserable movies to sit through because this guy just gets picked on and mocked and beaten down by society to the point that society breaks him. And that's when he puts on his Joker makeup, goes on the show, kills Murray. I like that this movie picked up where that left off. And in Arthur's perspective, in Arthur's life, that was one day. They took the one bad day that's usually associated with the Joker, and they used that one bad day as one time that Arthur went over the line, went far, killed, got crazy. And at the beginning of this film, you find him in prison. He's back on his medication. And in that way, that whole crazy Joker moment that happened is suppressed. But it's the one moment in his life that anybody cares about. The whole first movie is Arthur wanting to be noticed. He wants to be seen. And the only way he was seen was when he became the Joker. And in this movie, we pick up, and I love the question that this movie asks of Arthur. Does he want to be the Joker? Because Arthur in the first film, before he got beaten down by society and before everything just hit the fan, he never intended to be that guy. And I found it really interesting in this movie that they followed it up with him being asked by the world, we want you to be the Joker. We want you to be the Joker. And him having to wrestle with that. Do I want to be the Joker? Is being seen, is being noticed, is being well known worth what I did? And I like that the movie also challenges Arthur to face the consequences of his actions. And I also like that the movie, because when the movie starts, when we get that animated short of Joker and his shadow, I got nervous because when I was watching that short, and you know the shadow is apart from Arthur, and then he goes out and kills Murray, and then when Arthur comes back out, the shadow kind of beats him up, dresses him as a Joker, and basically puts the blame on him. I was really worried. I was like, oh no, they're gonna say that it's a split personality, aren't they? They're gonna say that wasn't Arthur, and they're gonna say the Joker is someone else. And when the movie started to introduce that concept, I liked that when they introduced the concept, it wasn't Arthur has a split personality. It was that was the scapegoat for Arthur to avoid the consequences. People were telling him, just say it's a split personality. You're facing the death penalty. Just say it's a split personality. And he used that when they told him to. But throughout the movie, it's very clear he never believes it. And I liked that quite a bit. And so for me, the big hook for me with this movie was how they continued the character study of Arthur, but this time it was him facing his identity of who is he going to be after the events, after that one bad day where he made that decision. Was he going to run with it? And all these supporters and people that wanted him to be the Joker, was he going to give them what they wanted? Or is that not what he wanted? And I found all of that very compelling, especially with Arthur. And then you bring in Lady Gaga, you bring in Harley Quinn. And another thing I loved about Harley Quinn's inclusion in this movie is how in the first movie, again, very consistent. When we had Zazie Beetz, Arthur Fleck, he wanted love. He wanted to be noticed by Zazie Beetz and by his mom. He just wanted someone to love him. And when you get to Harley Quinn, when you meet Harley Quinn, or Lee Quinzel, but for the sake of the review, we'll call her Harley Quinn. When you get to her character and they meet in the prison, and she instantly boosts his ego. Oh, you got a movie. How was it? It was great. I love you. Like Arthur was feeling love from Lee Quinzel. And another thing that people are upset about with this movie that I personally kind of like is how Harley Quinn manipulates the Joker as opposed to the Joker manipulating Harley Quinn and making her come to his side. Harley Quinn kind of is the one that pulls the Joker out of Arthur, because Arthur is essentially just a weak little man. Like when he puts on the Joker makeup, he finds that confidence. He can boast, he can pretend. But I like that in reality, Lee was in control and he was following her every step of the way, and how that desire to be loved by her and to feel like he had that love reciprocated for the first time in his life, that is why he continued with the Joker route, is because he finally felt like he had something that he'd been searching for. And When it comes to the musical aspects of the movie, which I say in my review, I didn't really like all that much. I think this movie mostly fails as a musical. But there were two song sequences, and I went back and looked at the soundtrack and looked at the lyrics just to kind of get my thoughts a little bit more together. When when Arthur is looking at the TV and it's about his court trial coming up and how he's facing the death penalty. And the inmates are asking Arthur, like, "Oh, are you scared to die, Arthur? Like, are you worried about that?" He breaks out into song, which, by the way, as soon as Joaquin started singing, I had 2 people leave my theater and never returned. By the way, my theater had about like 8 people in it. So, so it wasn't great. Wasn't great that happened for the movie. But what I liked about that song in particular, when it was about how, for once in my life, I have someone who needs me. He finally felt like he found love and all that kind of stuff. So the fear of going to trial and having a death penalty, that all played into the fact that he now had Harley Quinn. So I thought the inclusion of Harley Quinn was well utilized. I was a little bit disappointed though that we didn't really get to know much about Harley. We didn't really get to know much. Like Lady Gaga, she gave a really good performance. I just thought the character was a little underdeveloped, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that with some of the guests that I have here coming in as well. But let's talk about the big controversial thing, and then I'll bring in my guests here, and we'll dive deeper. We'll get into your comments and questions, whatever you guys want to talk about, because this movie, hey, love it or hate it, it's causing discussions, and I love that it's causing discussions, and that's why I want to talk so much about it. So when it comes to the ending, let's go a little bit backwards before the ending, because we get to the trial of Arthur Fleck, which I admit the trial stuff, it was kind of just retreading old water. In some ways, it was retconning some stuff that happened in the previous movie as well. It wasn't so interesting to me. It wasn't super fascinating to me. But what I liked about the trial is how they continued with the consistency of Arthur battling his identity. And eventually it gets to the point where he has to face all these stories, face all these people of things that he's done to them, how his actions have affected their lives. And eventually gets to the point where he fires his lawyer and he puts on the clown makeup and he starts representing himself as a Joker, which was a ridiculous concept. As soon as that happened, I was like, there's no way. I know that they kind of explain it in the movie where it's like, oh, there's no code of how you have to dress in court. I was like, that's bull crap. Come on. There's no way. There's no way that this would be allowed. So that was a bit of a stretch for me. But what I liked about it, and I don't know if you guys felt this way, but when Joaquin Phoenix was in the makeup and Gary from the previous film comes in to the trial, when he's like interrogating Gary, it felt off to me. And I was like, why does this feel so weird? Like, it feels like he's almost putting on like a southern accent. Something about it wasn't really gelling with me. And as the movie went on and as I thought about the movie afterwards, it's like there are many instances in this movie where he has to be the Joker, but there's moments where does he still have it is a question. And this was one of those moments that I think they were displaying in the film. There's another moment too when he's pulling up to the courthouse and he's laughing, but his laughs are kind of in and out. He kind of makes little twitches in his faces like he's trying to get the laugh just right. So I thought all that was really good. And when we get to the point where he's representing himself as the Joker and he's not really landing like he thought he would with the audience, and it felt a little off to me, the performance. What I loved about that moment was how Gary was the only person that really cared about Arthur in the first film and was truly one of Arthur's only friends. And when Gary breaks down and talks about what the Joker has done to him and how, Arthur was the only person who never made fun of him. And now here he is in court laughing about his name, making fun of him. You see how the hurt that Arthur has inflicted on this person affects him. And that's kind of where the conflict and the battle ends for him. And of course, this leads into the very controversial decision where he denounces the Joker. I'm not the Joker. And his followers get up and leave, which I know a lot of people do not like. And I'm on the fence about it. I like the concept. I think it works for the character journey of Arthur that happens in this movie. But I can see why people would be upset about it for sure. But that does lead us to the ending. And I do want to talk about this ending because the followers come and they blow up the courthouse. So we find out that the jury was finding Arthur guilty. But aside from that, the trial stuff, there really wasn't any conclusion to it. We sat through the trial. He faced his consequences and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of it, the trial stuff, didn't really do much. Didn't really add much. They blow it up. The followers come, which he runs away from his followers, which I also liked. That he has denounced the Joker. He's denounced these cult followings that he has. He doesn't want any part of it. He actively runs away from them, tries to find Lee, and Lee has also rejected him. Then we find him in the jailhouse. And, you know, the guards come up and say, you know, you got a visitor. We never see who the visitor is, because as he's walking down the hallway, this random guy, who we've seen in the background a little bit throughout the movie, to be fair, but this random guy comes up to Arthur and is like, hey, Arthur, can I tell you a joke? And I went, son of a bleep. He's gonna freaking kill Arthur, isn't he? Sure enough, that's what he does. Hey, a clown walks into a bar, says to another clown, I've looked up to you your whole life, and you know what? You're not funny or something like that, and you should get what you effing deserve. Uses Arthur's words against him, repeatedly stabs him in the stomach, and Arthur bleeds out and dies. The song That's Life plays and the credits roll. But in the background, the guy's cutting his face. And I know he's not Heath Ledger's Joker. That's where my mind went at first, where I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You did all this to get a Heath Ledger. But the timeline doesn't add up. I found that out very quickly in my head. So it's not Heath Ledger's Joker. But what I don't like about that is I feel like Todd Phillips actively went against making a comic book movie for both Joker 2019 and both Joker Folie Deux. It wasn't the general comic book movie. This wasn't about the origin of the Joker. That's not what this was about. He used the name of the Joker, like it or hate it. That's what he did. He used the name of the Joker. He adapted this character to the screen to tell an Arthur Fleck journey. And me personally, I like the character of Arthur Fleck. I like watching his journey. The tragedy of Arthur Fleck, I've enjoyed watching. But in that moment, when he killed Arthur and has the guy cutting his face, it goes against what these movies feel like they were. And he does a generic comic book villain origin story for a random guy we've never even met in the movies, or this movie in particular. First time he speaks, and he's taken the Joker mantle. And Arthur Fleck, who we followed for 2 movies, in the end, his life is so tragic that he just dies on the pavement floor with no one to love, and he's gone. And that just felt so unsatisfying to me, that now when you watch these 2 movies back to back, when you watch this complete arc, it's just broken man, broken by society, snaps, does something terrible on live TV, gains a following, has to deal with the fact that he has done this thing, he's got this following, has to question whether or not that's what he wants, in the end rejects it and dies on the cold pavement floor in a prison by himself. That's the journey of the character. Very unsatisfying. I would have preferred if Harley Quinn had killed, because he has these fantasies of her shooting him with the gun. I would have preferred that be the case if who he got so close to ended up killing him, or even if they had given us a completion of the trial stuff and he did get the death penalty and they did something like that, and then even after his death people still rose up. Like if they had done something that felt like a conclusion, but this felt to me like just Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix saying, we are freaking done with this, and there's no way you're pulling us back into this. There's no way we're giving you a third one. We're killing him off. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Anyway, guys, so that's kind of more going deeper into my spoiler thoughts. We're going to get to all your comments and questions, and together we are going to go through this with some guests here. I've got some members here. I think I'm going to throw out a couple more links to a couple more people as well throughout this conversation. But we've got Ace joining us, and we've also got Michael here joining us. What's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
How's everybody doing?
Long
good, good.
One sec, I just realized I don't have my headphones in.
You know what I was thinking, Michael, right? Because as soon as he said guest, I was like, I'm backstage, but I can't see anybody else. It would be dope if StreamYard actually let all the guests that were backstage talk to each other. Because I'm sitting here wondering, like, who else does he have on here?
Oh, you guys can't see who's backstage?
No, only you can see.
Yeah, surprisingly not.
Oh, that's funny.
It would be cool if we could talk to each other backstage while we were waiting.
That would be cool. Yeah, like I said, I'm very excited about this movie's discussion because I do feel like people just kind of throwing it in the trash, saying it's nothing but trash, saying it's awful, saying it's terrible, which I've seen a lot online. I feel like that negates so much that's here to talk about. Do I think it's a great movie? Do I think it's a good movie? Not entirely. I think it has really good aspects to it, though. And I love that people are having completely different experiences with it. I mean, for those who really hate it, I'm sorry you really hated it. That sucks to go to a movie and really hate it. But I love the conversation that's coming out of this. So I want to throw it to you first, Ace. Just some spoilerly overall thoughts of the movie, how it affected you, and then we're gonna talk with Michael and get some other people in here and jump to the chat and just have a good old conversation about this thing.
Yeah, overall with the movie, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was kind of boring to me. But it hits everybody differently.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quote what Sean Chandler had said. You know what I'm saying? We're all big fans of Sean Chandler here. He equated this movie to like art, meaning that it might work for some people, it might not work for other people. Which, ultimately at the end of the day, I can respect. I just ultimately think that it does have some bright spots to it, but ultimately I think it does work better if it wasn't a musical, in my opinion, because there are times in this movie, throughout the course of this movie, where I'm invested in it when the dark tones are really going, and like that's one of the problems I have is the tonal shift. When it allows you to be in those dark moments is when I'm like, okay, I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm ready to see what's going to happen. And then just like that, it switches to a musical where it's kind of like, okay, every 5 minutes with this is kind of just a little bit crazy. But I do think there are bright spots to this movie. I don't think it's totally like bad. I would give it personally a low score, but there are some bright spots that you can take away from this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you watch my regular review, I weekly don't recommend this movie. And a lot of it comes down to that ending and a lot of stuff that happens in the third act. But Michael, just briefly, spoilerly, kind of your thoughts. What did you think of Joker Folie à Deux?
Yeah, well, basically, I really just there was a lot of aspects of the movie that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't able to overshadow if, in my personal opinion, I think the story itself is really cool. What they were trying to do for a sequel, like the first Joker, was more about how we as a society kind of look down on people with mental illness, whereas this movie was more about exploiting people with mental illness. Like we're so like rather than actually caring about helping people with mental illness, we as a society care more about making TV films or documentaries about them because that's what gets people's attention rather than actually, doing something to help these people. And I think it was a great concept. And I think honestly, there were a couple musical numbers in this that I honestly thought actually added to the film itself. But with all the other musical sequences, which we've already talked about before, where it was just people walking down and singing, if they would have just had maybe one or two musical sequences and the movie was just focused solely on the actual ideas that they were going for, I honestly would have gave this movie like maybe a B plus. But as of right now, I haven't posted my review yet. I've given it like a C or a C minus.
Yeah, and do you think that the musical aspects of it are what kind of attributes to that D cinema score? Because when I think back on the movie and I think about the musical aspects of it, like there are actually two musical sequences that I really actually kind of enjoyed. And one of those is in the courthouse when he's singing about the Joker is me or whatever. When I listen to the lyrics of that, where he's like, "There's always a jester, there's always a fool. They don't care as long as the fool is falling down and laughing, and there's someone to joke on." And the lyrics kind of say like, "And the fate that has been dealt is the Joker is me." And I liked that in that musical sequence when he's going around the courthouse and he's smashing the judge on the head and he's just getting really really violent and over the top and chaotic as he's singing that song. Like that's what people want from him. Like the Joker is me. Like that. Like I am the person that they want to laugh at. I'm the person they want this from. And how that musical sequence just kind of like goes bombastic and crazy with just the violence and the chaos that ensues. The fact that it's all in his head is like, kind of disappointing, but at least that was like it had production behind it. It had some energy. Like it was more so what I wanted than just like two people sitting behind glass singing about the birds and the bees, and it's like, okay, well, like, why why does this do that? Like, there was one scene that I was really into. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head which one it was, but as soon as they stopped and started singing, I physically rolled my eyes. I was like, come on, really? Like, right now? Like, we don't need it right now. So I think it is a stronger movie if you take the musical sequences out. And I also think it's a better paced movie if you take the musical sequences out. Was there any musical sequence that worked for you guys?
The scene that you were referring to, during that sequence was really good. I would say that was probably the best one. There's a couple more out the gate. Like when this movie uses the musical to have the characters of Harley Quinn and Joker connect is kind of when I'm the most invested in it. You know what I'm saying? When they're having a connection through music. But then when it just seems like it's random, like the songs aren't really going with the current dialogue that's currently that they're currently talking about in the main storyline, is when it kind of loses me. And like you had said, I rolled my eyes with that same sentiment. I'm just like, again, like, didn't we just have one like 5 minutes ago? Like Michael was just talking about. In the beginning, I actually didn't feel like it was much of a musical because they had songs playing in the background. I'm like, okay, like if this is what it's going to be, I can see what they were talking about. It's not a traditional musical. But then I would say right after that point where I said that, every 5 minutes it was just going and going and going. I'm just like, okay, like this is kind of getting a little tiresome.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, how about you? Any musical sequences that did work for you? I've sent out a couple more links, so we might have some people joining us as well.
Oh yeah. For me, and then real quick full disclosure, I won't be able to be here for the full spoiler discussion, but I do like to share my thoughts for right now.
For sure.
But
I'm going to have people come in and out the entire time just because I want the different perspectives. I want the different voices to be heard.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much, man. But yeah, no, I want to say the ones very similar to what you guys said. The ones where like Joker and Harley are on a talk show together, that I enjoyed because, as I've said before, it's kind of like in the first Joker, where, Joker would always have like those dreamlike scenarios where he imagined being on the Murray Franklin show, or he would imagine being in a relationship with Zazie Beetz. That worked. And I think like the ones where he's in his head, where like during all these musicals and stuff, that worked fine. But like every other time when Joker would kind of just randomly start singing when somebody would ask him a question, I was like, if they would have just took out those scenes and kept those two big, like Broadway looking musical things, it would have honestly been a really good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there was still a couple things holding it back from being like a really good movie. Like I said, the trial was kind of dry.
Yep.
I feel like they could have spiced it up because for me, when they were telling the events, when they're talking about, oh, he was in the apartment. Oh, well, then did he leave? Yeah, he left. It's like, there's no suspense. There's no intensity. We saw that. We know. like there was nothing, like the whole trial. Like the one thing they say throughout the movie where it's like, yeah, duh, is like, you shot the guy on live TV. Like there's no defending yourself from that. You shot him on live TV. There's nothing about this trial that makes me go, well, maybe they won't find him guilty. Maybe this won't end with him being guilty. I suspected something had to happen with like a breakout or something with the trial because it was so flat. There wasn't really anything building. There wasn't any except for that Gary scene, which I thought that Gary scene was great. But yeah, no, the trial I felt could have been a little stronger. It could have been a little bit more interesting going into more of the psyche of Arthur in that way too. We've also got Luke joining us. What's going on, man?
Hey.
So I know that you really did not like this movie, so I definitely wanted to get your voice in here. I definitely wanted to get your voice in here, man, and hear from you. And like spoilery kind of overall thoughts. What was this movie to you?
Okay, so I did post my review on Friday night, the night that I saw this movie. I hated this movie. I hated this movie. First things, let me get my positives out of the way first, because I want to start off a little positive about this film, because there are a few things I will admire about this movie. I'm not going to overlook them, because they are good things about them. First off, Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, and Brendan Gleeson were actually the standouts, in my opinion, for performances. I think they were the standouts. This film is shot very well. Like, it's beautiful to look at.
It looks great.
Cinematography. Like,
oh, I think we lost Luke.
I'm still here. Am I still? You hear me?
Yeah, you're still here.
Oh.
You're still here.
Did
Not
we
quite
lose
sure
us
what
too?
happened to Luke or Michael. It's very strange.
But I mean, I agree
I'll
with Luke's
remove them
point.
for now until they come back.
Yeah, I agree with Luke's point. That's the same thing, that it's not terrible. Like cinematically, like this movie was very captivating. You know, like I had written something on a Discord. I was like, you know, I think this movie is at its best when it's focusing on Harley's fascination and fixation with Arthur, and cinematically, you know, in my opinion, Gaga steals the show. Cinematically is very captivating. You know, like I had said yesterday's stream, the silhouette transitions very creative to me. Like when you're able to be creative like that, because like we had talked about before, remember in the trailer where she smeared the lipstick on there and it went to his face in the first trailer. I was like, if this is that whole movie, I'm sold, because that to me is very, very creative. But like I said, where it loses me is where it's trying to be a trial musical. It's trying to be a courtroom drama with not a lot of drama, because we already know what happened, and it kind of just feels like they're rehashing the first one, especially with bringing in, even though the character of Mr. Puddles, I forget his first name, Mr. Puddles came back. You know what I'm saying? It just felt like they were rehashing it, even though that was one of the best scenes. And like I said, it just felt like it really just didn't have a direction. But like I said, cinematically, it was very, very beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had that in my review. I cut it because it was just kind of like surface level kind of stuff, but it did. Yeah, it looks phenomenal, especially on the big screen. I thought like it was also.
Did you go IMAX? Did you go IMAX?
No, because IMAX was only playing 3D, and I hate 3D. So, which by the way, had no idea that this was shot for 3D. Had no idea. So the only regular showing I could get was in a regular theater, but it still looked fantastic, and I loved that the look of it was consistent with the first film as well. It felt like the same place, the same, like it was great. We've got Kieran joining us from Film Review Central. What's going on, man?
Hello, how are you all? Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, what did you think of Joker Folie Do? What are your spoiler-filled overall thoughts?
I was massively disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I really loved that first film. I think it's one of DC's best. But you know, going into it, I was optimistic. I thought they were doing something different, and I appreciated the direction that they took within that. And I felt very disappointed with the product. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was again really good. I think he definitely displayed very great characteristics. The development of the character I thought was great, but I think the musical elements, again, it's a hot topic of conversation regarding this film. Either people are liking it or not, but I think it's really great to see conversations being made about this movie and generating it. But for me, it was a bit of a disappointment.
So going a little bit deeper, why were you so disappointed with it? What exactly about it did you hate or not like?
I think the musical aspects slowed down the pacing of the film. I felt like it was very stop-start. I've been listening to the show, and I agree with regarding the ending. I think that was so strange to kind of go into that direction. I did think it was a bit odd how they kept focusing in on that specific character that did kill him off in the end. I did think that was sad, but I don't think it could have been built up a lot more. If that was the direction that we're going to take. So I definitely don't think the ending was fantastic. I think the court stuff as well, whilst it showed a natural progression and really looked at certain relevant key things about mental health for the struggles and the direction that the lawyer kind of took with Joker. I think that was all intriguing, but I think the content of the court case was quite slow. So overall, I think the pacing was slow and definitely wasn't helped by the musical sequences.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Even like the ending, going back to the guy who comes out of nowhere and kills. There is a person in the prison that's like always hanging around Joaquin Phoenix, and it's like, how easy would it have been to just make that guy the one that, like, maybe he wants to like get close to Arthur, learn his ways, and Arthur won't teach him or something. Like maybe there's something there that at the end you have a relationship built to the point that when he kills Arthur, it has a little bit more meaning. But to me, they completely dropped it on that. But Luke, going back to you, because Ace and I up here, we're kind of a little bit more mixed, I would say, on the film. We're not as harsh, where I feel like down below, you guys are the ones who don't really like it. So I also want to hear from you, Luke, a little bit more. What about it did you dislike so much?
Okay, sorry about that. It's just my dad was calling, and that kind of cut my connection. So
oh, no worries, man.
But I still wanted to finish off my positives because I didn't finish those off before
Yeah,
my
go
dad
for it.
called. So like I said, the Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, and Brandon Gleeson are good. The movie is shot beautifully. I have to give it credit for that. It's shot beautifully. And I think for the most part, the trial scenes are actually pretty well portrayed. Like,
okay,
in my opinion, they're actually pretty well portrayed because even though they kind of just are retracing stuff that happened in the first film, obviously, but like they actually kind of had some meaning. I kind of felt like with what's the guy's name?
Harvey Dent?
No, Arthur's only friend. Like,
oh, Gary,
that's what his name is. That one, I think that was the trial scene that I think that had the most meaning behind it because Gary was his only friend, and it was like what happened that one night when Gary came to visit Arthur, how much it actually hurt him, like as a person.
I loved that. Yes,
It works. But what I felt like, when it came to like Harvey Dent's kind of stuff, especially like when he asks one of the doctors about with Arthur's condition. As for someone who has mental health problems himself, this is honestly kind of disgraceful because
okay,
they're just exploiting mental health. Like people, like they think that people don't actually have this kind of condition. Like, and I'm just like, seriously, this is what you're doing?
Is there any first of all, Luke, thank you so much for bringing that perspective and being honest with that. Like that's very brave and vulnerable of you. So I want to respect that entirely, and thank you so much for bringing that perspective up. But do you think that there's any reasoning because this takes place in the 80s, right? Where the mental health kind of conversations and insights and knowledge was a little bit more limited, or at least very different than what we have today and how we talk about it today. So do you think that there's any merit to it, to the fact that it was set during that time period?
Maybe there might be, but if I'm still kind of looking at it in today's climate and the way that they're kind of describing it, it hit me the wrong way. Like,
yeah, and that's totally fair. I can see that for sure.
That's one thing I hated about this movie. The musical sequences do not fit this film at all. Like, in my opinion, sure, maybe the imaginary scenes might work, but they still don't fit for me because I'm just like, it's stuff in Arthur's head, sure, but I just don't like the music. Like, I don't like the music that they're doing.
I agree because for me, and I want to see if you guys agree with this, the music sounded all the same.
Well, it was definitely an error that they were playing. Like around that time,
like
a lot of that music
it's like
was
the
like
same
that.
exact instruments were just used to create like different music, and like all the sounds in the background. You put the nail right on the coffin, Zach. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, they're sung the same. They're kind of like under their breath a little bit. You have Lady Gaga in this movie. And you don't let her belt out a note except for like one song. It was like,
if you want to see a good Lady Gaga movie with Lady Gaga where she does sing, go watch A Star Is Born. Go watch that one.
Absolutely. And she's great in that.
And also same for Joaquin Phoenix. If you want to see a good movie where he sings, go watch the Johnny Cash movie, Walk the Line. He does play as Johnny Cash.
That's right.
And he is so good in that film. And he actually sings really well, like kind of just portraying as Johnny Cash. Like he does it so well.
Yeah, he sounded better there than he did here.
Those two films, much more worth your time. Like, I'll just say that much. But another thing I hated about this film, this script. Honestly, I really did not like this dialogue. Like,
okay, can you dive further into that? What about the dialogue did you not exactly like?
It's actually some of the way that some people like deliver their dialogue. Like, I kind of just feel like it was done in a way where it's like the director just said, okay, here's your line, deliver it this way, and then they just did their job. Like, I kind of don't feel like it really was most of the dialogue, like for the first half, was spoken with much emotion to it. Like in the second half, when it came to like when Arthur was confessing himself, like to not actually be the Joker, it's just how he is. I felt it because of the way he was delivering the dialogue. But I don't know, dude. Like
That's
most
interesting.
of the time, like whenever the characters are talking, or even like with some of the way that they were written to talk, I was cringing.
I was cringing at when they started to sing because it
That's
got a
another
little
point
bit.
when I started. That's another point when I started to cringe. I saw this with my best friend because him and I go to movies pretty much all the time. I turn like every single time I turn it got cut to a musical scene. Every single time we were just like, really? This is the way you go? And one thing I pointed out in my review, like, and I do agree with this. I typed this in the chat earlier. It would have worked 100% if it was not a musical. If it was just a courtroom film, just going over what happened, and just so that way we can see what happened with what's going to happen with Arthur as a person, that would have worked 100% better. And I would have liked to have seen the trial be complete to actually see if Arthur is going to get the death penalty. And
Well,
if he
kinda
did,
did.
and if he does get the
Yeah,
if he did get the death penalty, which he more than likely would,
yeah.
like so if or when he gets the death penalty, that would actually be more tragic. Like,
Yeah. I
it's like-
100% agree.
because you care about, like, even though you don't condone his actions, it's like you understand like why he committed those crimes.
Yeah.
Like you
Absolutely.
understand why he did, because people didn't care about him, and they kept making fun of his illness.
Yeah.
So it's like I understand like why he did what he did. So again, him going through the death penalty, getting the electric chair, might have done the trick. Maybe it definitely would have had more, because that's the biggest like death penalty. Like when it comes to that kind of stuff, that's like the most common thing when it comes to the death penalty.
Yeah,
Not
for
to get
sure.
too deep into
Especially
that, but
in that
it's
time of
just-
day, it would have been the chair. But I want to get something from you guys as well before, and then we're going to jump into the chat and see what people are saying in here. I want to talk about that controversial moment of him denouncing the Joker. I want to hear your guys' thoughts about how, because a lot of the conversation that I've seen online of why people are really mad about this movie is they feel that they trolled them and basically spat in the fans' faces who liked this movie and basically made a movie that went against everything that people liked in the first film. And from a meta perspective, if you're looking for that, sure, I can kind of see. But with this movie, within the story itself and following the thread from the first film to this film, what I saw was Arthur Fleck had built the mantle of the Joker. The Joker became this icon. The Joker became this other thing. Again, referring back to the shadow at the beginning of the animated short at the beginning, where the shadow kind of becomes separate from Arthur Fleck. And it's something that is constantly chasing him, that he has to live up to. And I felt like when the movie has the decision of him to denounce the Joker and say that this was never the Joker, I was never the Joker, I think that was the movie within the story. Arthur can't live up to what he has created, and his followers loved what he had created, not him. So in the end, they're not going to remember Arthur Fleck. They're going to remember the icon, the Joker that he created, and that's what's going to live on, not Arthur Fleck. Again, don't like how they necessarily ended the movie in that way with killing him in the way that they did, but I kind of liked that idea and almost the execution of how they did it in the film. I'll start with you, Ace. What did you think of him denouncing the Joker, all that kind of stuff? How did you see that?
I kind of saw that as like we as an audience wanted a certain thing. So I did kind of feel like it was a little meta towards us. You know what I'm saying? Just a tad bit as far as you want this type of Joker, so he's going to denounce it. But I thought it worked well for the story that they were trying to tell. I wasn't against it at the end of the day. I just wish that it could have just been just thought out a little bit differently and giving us more time to flesh it out a little bit instead of it just being so sudden, because we had a good scene where all of a sudden, like, I do think that one scene where that did hit him hard, and I do think that was the start of him starting to denounce the Joker, where Gary was there, and then all of a sudden it just kind of felt like it was real sudden, but at the same time too, the movie was kind of long enough as it is, so you kind of have to just go ahead and get into it. But ultimately I really didn't have a problem with it.
All right, Kieran, how about you? How did the denouncing of the Joker land for you?
That was an aspect of the movie I think made sense, and that was a part of the film that I enjoyed, because I think, as we mentioned, it was a character, and there's a lot of people that do put on a face and do hide behind this idea if people do like them, and that was his main goal. He wanted to be seen, he wanted to be liked. But I think it made logical sense as well, because apart from the guys on the tube station, I think all of his deaths were massively emotional. These people who were treating him as a joke, lying to him, like his mother and Randall and things like that. So I do think it made logical sense. But as we were saying, as Ace was saying with Gary in the courthouse, I think that was a big moment. But also when Harley Quinn decided to tell him that that she's pregnant, I think that could have potentially been an aspect which could have changed his mindset. But he knew that he couldn't live up to the mantle. He probably felt like he was going to get the death penalty. It was never going to go in his favor. So for me, I think it did make logical sense. It kind of then showed that the ending was that poor, because I think that could have been a real great way to end it. But for me, that was a real positive, because it made logical sense within the story.
How about you, Luke?
I will say this, though. I was not liking the film already, like, as the film was still progressing. I will say, when he was denouncing himself, when he was denouncing the Joker, I was like, okay, this is a step in the right direction. I like this. Like, maybe this is a good way to finish the story. But then I'm just like, okay, this is good. Like, he's fessing up, and he's not gonna just blame his alter ego. Like, he's actually confessing as a person. Like, I like where that went. Like, so I was thinking, like, as far as like my score was like dwindling, it was leaning towards like a 1.5 right then.
Out of what, 10?
5 out of 5.
Oh, okay. 5, 1.5 out of 5. Still not
out
great.
of 5. So it was dwindling towards that, and then when he denounced himself, that went up to like a low 2. But once he's killed in prison by the one guy that you never see throughout most of the movie, except in the background, never communicates with Arthur one single time, it dropped it a star down.
Yeah, I can see that, because I agree 100% with my friend.
That was definitely a shock value type moment, but it was predictable.
Like, I get that it's shock
really
value, but it's like, who are you, dude? Like, you never really had like a whole moment.
Yeah. Like Zach was saying, if it was the friend that was kind of like following him around, I feel like that would have made more sense, because it's like, that
would have had more meaning to it. Or if it was like one of his fantasies, like when where Harley Quinn shot him, that might have done the trick.
Yeah.
But oh my god. Like,
also, do you guys think it was a little, like, I'm not saying it was Heath Ledger's Joker, but I do think it was a little homage to it, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we all know, like, Joker's a character that has like multiple interpretations. So I do feel like they just kind of like just gave it a quick little shout out at the end with the guy kind of carving his face up, but that's at least what I took from it.
Yeah, I think homage is the nicest way of saying it. I mean, because like when you see that, like, the audience is almost automatically going to, at least I did, automatically think of Heath Ledger.
Yep.
So I think they should have been more aware of that, of like, we are going to get some people insinuating who this is. Like, he's such an iconic character, and Heath Ledger is iconic in the role, and everyone knows about the scars and the knife, and you want to know how he got these scars. Like, it's embedded in pulp culture. They knew what they were doing. It was a little cheeky. I think it was dumb overall.
Literally cheeky.
Yeah.
Literally cheeky. Literally cheeky.
Cheeky. Gotcha, Zach. Clever boy.
From
all right,
a music standpoint, though.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Heath.
Now, I just want to ask you guys from the musical standpoint, right? Because I'm somebody that grew up doing music and really into the music scene at a young. I'm assuming I'm older than you guys. Zach, I know you're younger. I don't know how old Luke and Kieran are. Do you think that it was the right demographic musically to push? You know what I'm saying? Because like demographically, it feels like it's all over the place. Like the music is, 60s, 70s, early 80s, but then you're trying to push to a society that, what I'm saying, that knows the Joker. Like a lot of older, like for the people that are older that would enjoy the music, they're not going to like the Joker. You know what I'm saying? But then for the people that like the Joker, they're not going to like the music. So it kind of feels like the demographic is kind of like iffy. What do you guys think about that?
I think that Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix are older, and I think this is the kind of music that spoke to them and and worked for them. But it's interesting because in my review, I even said like they've taken a comic book movie genre film with a grounded story about how the Joker could be real, and they've added a musical aspect to it. Like you're already kind of pushing the boundaries and stretching people's acceptance of doing a comic book movie that's this grounded. You already don't have Batman. It's already a very, very, very different take on the Joker in the first film. I'm talking about the first film alone because the first film was already divisive for a lot of reasons like that. And then they've gone and they've put a spin of putting a musical on it, which I would personally say that comic book movie genre fans and the musical fans there's very little overlap there. So just by doing that, and even before the movie came out, I've had conversations with people where that's alienating the audience that you should be marketing to. So I think it was very bold. I applaud them for trying it. I think I'd rather them have tried it and have it fail like it did than to get something a little bit more generic and uninterested, in which you could argue this movie is uninteresting with it in there. But it definitely isn't playing to a modern audience that I think they would expect, Warner Brothers would expect people to come to. So overall, I think it was a failure and I think it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think the originality and the potential original aspect of the film is ultimately a lot of people's failure. I think a lot of people were really hesitant after the first one. I think it got a lot of people on board. Of course, it had great commercial success with the Academy Awards and things like that, which I think really shown that this movie had a place and a real positive within the genre. But it is bold. And I think we all knew that. I think it's fantastic to see people take risks, particularly within a genre that has so many films year after year, come out in different perspectives. But ultimately, I think is the musical aspects in a comic book film where it pushes it too far. Is it a little bit too crazy to kind of cover? But I think with Ace's question about the music, I think the music fit the character of the Joker because it's very musical theatre-esque, very grand music, and that's what he was. He wanted to be a showman, be on the stage, have people all watching him, and obviously Harley Quinn kind of fed into that because she was happy to do whatever Arthur wanted to do. So I think the music fit within the movie, but I understand why people potentially a little bit negative because it's not necessarily the up-to-date modern music that we're getting. But I think it was just repetitive. If they changed it up, different genres, different types of music, I think it could intrigue. But as we mentioned before, it is just the same style of music over and over again, which gets very repetitive.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I can agree with that, actually. I mean, as for someone who is a fan of musicals, like, I love musicals, putting it in with a Joker, like, especially for a character that I've known for so long, especially since when I watched, especially when I first watched The Dark Knight and, of course, the 89 Batman.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then also watching a couple of other stuff that involves the Joker, like the Batman animated stuff or Batman the Killing Joke. When I watch this film and then when we go to the musical sequences, I think to myself, this is not the Joker. Like, this is not the Joker I know. Like, this is just so weird and just off-putting. So, I really don't think the music, like I said, the musical sequences do not fit this film. And I agree with Kieran. I think they are incredibly repetitive. Like same sound and everything like that. It like whenever just the music just kicks in, it's like, okay, come on, dude. You're just overdoing yourself. Just relax a little bit. Come on. Maybe just a couple in the film might have done it, but when it's like quite a bit of the film, it's just like you're just overdoing yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So we're almost an hour in, so we're going to start getting to these comments and questions now, responding to what people are saying, what they want to talk about with the Joker, because there's a lot of conversation to have with this movie. I love it so much, despite not loving the movie. I love what this movie has provided. So let's get into it.
I'll give it this benefit. Definitely that it's spawning conversation. I'll give it that for sure.
But Dark Movies is saying Madam Web having a better cinema score than Joker 2 is insane. Does anyone think that Madam Web was better than Joker Folie à Deux?
I did say Joker might rival Madam Web, but ultimately I don't think it's I still give Joker the edge because of like cinematically it was just better, you know.
Yeah, it was better directed though. Yeah, it was better directed. It had a lot better defining shots. I mean, there were so many great shots in this film. One of my favorites was the umbrellas. You know, they did give him an umbrella, but they all had different colors. They didn't have green. I thought that was fantastic. So, Madam Web, I wasn't a fan of that movie at all. So, I'll give Joker 2 is higher on any list for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely going Joker Folie à Deux is better because like there's actual thought put into a lot of this, whereas Madam Web, I feel like there was no thought at all put into this. Like one of it's the tiniest scene, but I loved it in this movie is when Arthur's in prison and the guards are always like, hey, tell us a joke. You only get a cigarette if you tell us a joke. I love when he's walking with the guard. I think they've just left the singing group for the first time, and he tells a joke and he goes, was that a joke? And he gives him a cigarette. And Arthur puts it in his mouth. He goes, thanks, bud. And just pats the guy on the back. And the guy smacks him across the head. Like, do not cross the boundaries. Like, you're like basically a pet. Like, you're like, get out of here. Like, tiny moment. I loved it.
Did you catch the payback later, though? When after whatever they did to Arthur in the bathroom and like they're carrying him out and he's laying there and then he just randomly slaps the guy, like kind of gets like one more it in. Yeah. I was like, I laughed at that part. I thought that was funny.
Luke, we're talking about if Madam Web or Joker was worse.
You guys are going to hate me for this. I found more entertainment out of Madam Web.
Okay. Wow.
I found more entertainment out of that movie mainly because I had a great theater experience. I watched that film with my best friend all alone. We laughed our asses off from the beginning to the end. So I can actually watch Madam Web and not be bored. Because for most of Joker, I was pretty bored.
That is something that I've heard with this movie a lot. And what I can say is through all the decisions and perplexing and all that stuff, I was never really bored in this movie. Like, I thought the trial was kind of flat, could have been a little bit more interesting. But like the whole time I was watching the movie, I never really got to the point where I was like, I'm ready for this to just end. Like I was constantly along for the ride, and I was surprised to hear how many people found this to be such a bore when they came out of it.
It honestly was, in my opinion. I mean, like it is what it is. But after all, like we all have our fair share of tastes. But I don't know. Yeah. I was way more bored with this one than Madam Web.
Do you think it's rewatchable though? You think you'd feel the same if you watched it again?
I'll say this.
I
do want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I never want to watch this again.
Yeah, see, I've heard so many people say that, and I don't feel that way. Like I would watch this again. I think there's things that would stick out to me more. Like I said, I saw this on Thursday. I've not stopped thinking about it, and there are things in it that I didn't like that as my thoughts have like progressed and evolved, I've actually like turned a corner on and have liked. Like next week, I might love this ending. Like I'm just constantly going through this movie, re-examining it and analyzing it and scenes and things that stuck out to me. Like on my review, I said it failed completely as a musical. There's no earworms. I found myself humming The Joker when I was doing the dishes the other day, and I was like, "What's that?" That's from The Joker Folie à Deux. That's the song he sings in the courtroom. Like there are little things about it that are coming back up for me. So
Yeah.
whereas Madam Web, everything that comes up for me with that, I'm just like, ugh, get out of my brain. I don't I don't want to remember you.
Every time I just think about Madam Web, I laugh because it's like I know it's bad, but damn, is it fun? But
Yeah, I don't know if I can put that
the
back
way you
on
kind of
again.
described how you're feeling about this one now, Zach, is actually kind of how I'm a little bit off topic here. I just want to preface this. Was actually kind of how I'm feeling about Yorgos Lanthimos' film Kinds of Kindness, because I've actually had people explain the film to me a little bit more because I did not understand it at all. So shout out to the people that it kind of explained it more, and I got it more now. So.
Nice. Yeah, I
But-
love when that happens with the film. Just going through,
I
we
was
got
just
Toxic Gamer in here. Oh, sorry, Kieran. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, also, I think with this Madam Web and Joker 2 debate, I think there was a lot more, pressure on Joker 2 because it was, coming off of that first film. Madam Web is part of a series where a lot of people are just had enough of the Sony movies. I remember mine and Zach's discussion where we talked about Kraven the Hunter, and that was an entertaining conversation. So I think a lot of people were more looking forward to this film. That's potentially why it's got a lower score, because overall people are just massively disappointed. They weren't expecting probably much from Madam Web. The trailers didn't look good, the production wasn't great. So I think potentially that's why Madam Web has got a better one, because people were like, okay, that was bad, but I knew it was going to be bad. So
I will agree with that, though. Production wise, this film is much better.
Yep.
Like production wise, and definitely, I would say technical speaking, like with all the technicals, much better than Madam Web.
Yeah,
But if
I
I were
agree.
to sit down and watch a entertainingly bad movie, I'm hopping in Madam Web.
I think
I would not pop in
expectations.
this one.
I think expectations play a big part in it too, because I can't think of a single person who was expecting Madam Web to be good. Like not a single
Not me.
person.
I mean, I thought it looked fine, but I wasn't expecting it to be good.
Yeah, but like this movie was on a lot of people's top 10 most anticipated for the year.
Me?
So yeah, me too. So it definitely had way more expectations, and thus when the expectations don't get met, it falls harder. Whereas Madam Web, it was like exactly where I thought it was going to be, where it was just a train wreck.
That's kind of how I'm feeling with Venom. I'm just like, yeah, Venom's gonna be what it's gonna be. My expectations are very similar.
I'm actually looking forward to Venom.
I'm at the point where I'm like, Venom 3 is probably going to be higher on my ranking list at the end of the year than Joker Folie Deux. And I'm not going as far to say that Craven will be. I'm not going as far to say as Craven will be. But if you have asked me like a week ago, do you think you'll like Venom or Joker more? I would have smacked myself in the face in the future if I had said Venom. Like, I can't believe that we might live in a world where Venom is better than Joker Folie Deux. That's crazy.
I hope for your sake
I don't
that
know.
Craven doesn't get a good recommendation from you, because you know what you got to do.
Has to be a strong recommendation. A strong recommendation. Can't be any lower than that.
Yeah, watch Venom The Last Stand get an extremely positive review from me. Like, watch that happening. Like, I give this one a really negative review, and then Venom: The Last Dance gets a highly positive.
It's possible. It's possible, my friend. It could happen.
I like the first two, but we'll see how the last one turns out.
We got Toxic Gamer in here saying hello. Dark Movies continuing. I don't think Joker 2 deserves this much hate. I don't think it does either. I think I kind of relate this to Last Jedi to Rise of Skywalker, where I think in some ways Joker was the Last Jedi because it was divisive when it came out. And now this is the Rise of Skywalker. And I feel like more people disliked Rise of Skywalker than liked Last Jedi because the Rise of Skywalker kind of undid a lot from Last Jedi. And I think a lot of people are feeling that with this one, where even those who liked the first Joker feel like this one has undone some things from the first Joker. And I think the conversations are very similar to the point that this is getting a lot of hate. Only difference is that I don't think it necessarily deserves all the hate, whereas Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi kind of do, in my opinion.
Here's the thing when it comes to movies. Sometimes it's the cool thing just to hate on a movie and give it unnecessary hate. You know what I'm saying? Like Star Wars fans are like that, where it becomes popular to say, okay, I didn't like this movie. Do I think this movie might fall in that category? Because the first one had a lot of people that either loved it or hated it too, and I think this one's the same thing. People either love it or hate it, and if you like it, it's cool, and it's cool that we can all have different perspectives on it. And I'm loving the fact that everybody on here has different views. Zach seems to like it a little more than I did. I'm a little mixed about it. You guys seem to like not really enjoy it, but it's cool that a movie like this can bring everybody together at the end of the day with different perspectives.
Yeah,
I agree with
love
you,
that.
actually. Like, because that at the end of the day, that's what film really should be. Like, like whatever how you feel. Like, it's good that we're here to talk about it and not just be like, oh, this person hated it. Let's be that guy. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
We're actually being what we're supposed to be and actually talking about it and not just being dicks or being like, hey, you hated it? Cool, I did too.
Yeah,
high five. Like yeah,
exactly, right? Like, to me, that's not fun. I've been
Star Wars fans though. They all do that. Star Wars fans do that a lot.
For sure.
I know that's kind of the reason why I started YouTube, was because I just wanted to talk about it, not just be like, oh, you liked it? I did too. Cool. Like that.
Yeah, which is what you get on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, it's just, I didn't like it. There's no real conversation happening on Twitter. So this is way more fun to me. This is way more engaging.
It reminds me. It reminds me of that scene from Step Brothers. You hated it. I hated it too. Did we just become best friends? That's exactly how it's like.
I love a good Step Brothers.
We just become best friends. Yeah.
Doc Movies follows up saying, I wish we got more of Joker, but instead we just got a prison courtroom drama about Fleck. And this is one thing I've also been seeing online that I think is pretty unfair, is people are kind of giving this a negative view or negative on this because it's not the movie that they thought it was going to be. And I don't feel like that's fair to the movie itself, because this wasn't a conventional Joker movie, Joker, Harley Quinn, Lewis and Clyde, whatever, going off in cars and mayhem in Gotham. That's not what this movie was. And really, that's not what the first film was either. The first film, Arthur has always been the protagonist and the character that we're following and studying since the first film. And they continued that in this one. So if you don't like the movie, that's totally fair. But I've seen a lot of criticisms about this movie simply because, this wasn't even a Joker movie. Never really was in the first place. It's very consistent with what we got.
I agree with that. Like, I never really found that criticism fair, because, like you said, this is Arthur Fleck's story. This is not just about the Joker. Like, especially when he's on trial, like, even when he becomes the Joker, it's still Arthur. Like, it's still him. Like, it's just like, he's just in clown makeup. He's being himself still, not his alter ego that he was in the first film.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think they tried to detach the two characters anyway, and that was the whole point about the whole mental health stuff. So I do think that's where, that's why the movie has got that. But I do think then they tried to make up for it, saying, well, there's no Joker in this by letting him wear clown makeup in the courtroom and real kind of see that shift. I think that was probably that's the reason why they made that decision, is that there's no Joker in this. Okay, we'll give you Joker. But no, I think they were trying to detach the two characters anyway. That was the main goal of the film. But like Zach said, the first film is, I rewatched this film a couple of days before, and you do, every single time you rewatch it, you see how it very slowly builds up to be Joker. But it was an Arthur Fleck story. It was a character assessment of him and his life and what was going to happen. So I think that just carried that on. That it didn't just do a full 180 and gone, right, here's your Joker movie that you were expecting. And once again, they took their time.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got Toxic Gamer saying he's got the hurricane. So everyone who's dealing with the hurricanes, by the way, just want to send love and prayers to you. Hope you guys are all staying safe. Toxic Gamer says, I actually didn't see either Joker movies. I just wanted to find out the ending. Fair enough. You know what? Save yourself a couple bucks. Save yourself a couple bucks.
Well, I'll give him that. Yeah, I'll give him that. He saved himself some money.
That's fair, man. That's fair. Like I said, do I recommend people go see this in the theater? Not really. I mean, I do have a lot of appreciation for for what they attempted to do, and I liked the conversation. But like I said in my review, that ending, the overall journey, it's not worth it to me.
No.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Honestly, actually, after I walked out of it, like after the credits started, because there's no post credits. In case anybody's wondering, there's no post credits, so you don't need to stay around for anything. As soon as I walked out, I literally thought to myself, I should have just saw Wild Robot again. I would have had much better time watching that again.
It's funny. I actually got like a little Wild Robot figurine from AMC the same day I went to see Joker. So that was probably the best part about that, going to the movies that night.
Dude, I wish. I wish I got that, and then I could have taken a picture of it and then just put it in my review, put it in my my video review and be like, well, this was the best thing to come out of my night. And then Raw's figurine.
Zach, have you seen that yet?
Wild Robot?
Yeah.
Nope. I had plans to see it.
Ooh, I recommend you should.
Dude, you gotta see it, man. It's so good.
I'm honestly though, I'm at the point now where I'm like, it's too hyped up for me. I don't know if it's gonna live up now.
I think it will, because they just randomly decided we're gonna drop a gem like out of nowhere with little to no promotion. So
I agree.
I haven't seen it yet either, but I live in the UK and it's not out yet. But every time I see the trailer, I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be one of the best animated movies of the year. So I'm going to be there, but that's my reason why I've not seen it yet.
In my opinion, it's one of the best movies of the year.
I'm not, again, don't go in. I'll just say for your sake, Zach, don't go in expecting this, because this is obviously just what I think. It's my number one so far right now of the year.
Of the entire year.
Yep, the Wild Robot's my number one.
I have it in my top 5. Like it easily out of nowhere cracked it. I didn't expect it.
So crazy. I honestly can't even like fathom how that moved, because before all the positive buzz came out, I saw one teaser trailer for it in the theaters this year, and I was just like, not for me, not interested. Did not look the least bit intriguing to me. And to hear everyone saying all these like really positive things about it, I'm like stunned. I'm stunned that this is the movie.
We talk about expectations. So now your expectations are.
I was gonna say, do we just become best friends? Yes. I have to do that joke for that, because that film is fucking awesome.
Going on to Dark Movies, saying, unfortunately, I don't think Harley was written well. Lady Gaga is a good actor, but as Harley, I don't know. I don't think she was either. Well, I think she was underutilized, I think is the better word for me to use. But I liked how she was used in Arthur's story. And I think that's something that going into the movie, I was expecting a little bit more of Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn to have her own story. And she doesn't really, but she is the Folie part of this. She is the one who is buying into this fantasy. She is the one who is pretending with Arthur, and is really the one that gets Arthur to pretend again. To the point that I liked when Arthur does denounce the Joker, she is just cuts all ties with him, because that was the fantasy crashing and burning down. Like that's all she had was the Joker. She just loved the idea, this story of the Joker. One thing that I thought might have been implied for her character that I wish the movie had gone deeper into is they mentioned that, you know, her dad's a doctor, he's rich, and she did go through psychiatric schooling, and she checked herself into Arkham. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder if what they're implying here is like when Arthur went on the Mirror Show as the Joker and was like, I want to burn it all down, and went against, Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne. Goes after Thomas Wayne, goes after the big billionaires, the money makers in Gotham, and how those without that are being stepped on, and you have no idea what the streets are like here and what it's like to be me. Like, I wonder if she, like, again, I'm just reading into this because the movie does not define this at all, but I wonder if there was something where she hated her dad, or she hated the wealth of her family, that the idea of this Joker character being this like coming up and rising up against the authority of these people that she despises. I wonder if that was some of what played into her fantasy of loving the idea of the Joker, because it was some kind of rift between her and her parent, or because there's even that one scene where she's like in her room and she's about to off herself, and I didn't quite understand why. The movie didn't really like give me much of an explanation or reason to understand that scene, at least from my memory of watching the movie. Did you guys pick up on anything like that with Harley Quinn? How did you guys feel about the Harley Quinn character? We'll start with you, Kieran.
I completely agree. I felt the character was really underdeveloped, but I think also to kind of contradict that, I think it had potential to be that, to not have that. As soon as his lawyers explaining about Harley, because she knows that she could potentially be the reason why either they win or lose the case, I think that they could have done it then. But I like the idea that Zach came up with, mainly because I think that first film did develop that idea of rich versus poor, and Thomas Wayne calling the poor people in Gotham clowns, kind of coming up with that idea. I think that that's again another relevant thing that is happening in today's society, that the gap between them. So I feel like they really missed a beat there, and they could have done that really well with Lady Gaga character. There's certain moments where I think it could have been explored, it could have took the time. The biggest thing that fascinates me is why she checked herself into Arkham. Was she told to, or
well, she wanted to meet him. That's what the movie. That's the explanation for the movie, anyways.
Yeah, but I think it was a very interesting aspect which they could have delved in a little bit deeper in, and so I think that they missed a beat with that and made the character feel very underdeveloped. And from the trailer, it looked like Harley was going to be all over this movie, and for me, I don't think she was. They went a different route and direction.
Yeah.
I'm gonna disagree with you guys. I actually think she was one of the bright spots of this movie. Her character to me was very intriguing, and like I had told Zach, when her fascination and fixation is at the forefront, I think this movie's at its best. I do think during the courtroom scene where she's kind of sidelined a little bit more is when it kind of slows down for me. Also on a side note, I love that comic color accurate jumpsuit that she was wearing to the Harley Quinn. That was actually pretty fire when she walked in with that. But I was very intrigued by her character. A lot of this time during the movie, I was actually thinking, is she a figment of Arthur's imagination? Because you remember in the first movie, right? They were talking about how much of this is actually going on, or how much of this is actually going on in Arthur's head. The things that they were setting up where she just happened to have access to everything. Like she was able to get into Arthur's cell. She was able to,
which I didn't buy that part when she was in
the I did not buy that for a second, dude.
Yeah, when she was fake, that's when I had thought like maybe all this is going on in his head. Because even when she went to the courtroom scene and and you see the picketed fence from the general population, and she's smoking a cigarette, dancing, and then going in to sit in the courtroom. I'm like, how is she getting into all these places? Like she's got to be fake, but turns out it wasn't. And yeah, I thought she was one of the more interesting parts about this movie.
I think Lady Gaga's performance was more interesting than the character itself. I think that's how I would describe it. I think Lady Gaga, just in her performance, and I feel the same way with Joaquin Phoenix too, with like they just carry the movie so much that I think their presence in and of themselves make them standouts. But when I look at what's under the surface of the performances and what they're working with, that's where I kind of feel the underdevelopment aspects of it. But I think that's a fair point too. I was very like eagle eye watching if anyone else interacted with her or saw her. And for a little bit in the movie, I kind of felt like, okay, well, what are the odds that she checks herself in? She's in this singing group and she's just hoping that Arthur Fleck gets added to this singing group. Like, I didn't quite understand what her plan was to meet him, but because it seemed like they were completely in separate wards. I didn't know how they were eventually going to meet if he didn't get added to the singing group. So I thought, okay, maybe she is a figment of the imagination. And then when she was in the hole with him, I was like, there's no bloody way. There's no way that they would let, like, no, if you're in the hole, you don't, they would not allow her to do that. So when she popped up there, I was like, she's probably, and that's when I really started to watch. But then when the lawyer talked about her, I was like, oh, so she must be real because someone else is acknowledging her. So yeah, that's when I got a little disappointed.
Also, didn't think we needed a sex scene in this movie during that scene. That was kind of very awkward and kind of went on too long.
No.
I started to get really worried when she like visited him in the hole. I thought, hang on, what's going on here? That was probably one of the definitely not the strangest moment in terms of what it covers, but in a story sense, I thought, okay, this is starting to worry me about the other decisions that they decided to make in this. That was the beginning point for me where she's never going to be able to access that at all. So that was a little bit worrying.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Before I give my thoughts on Harley Quinn quick, I literally just lost my train of thought for some reason. Okay, so yeah, so you actually guys want to, before I give my thoughts on that quick, you actually guys want to know something funny?
What's that?
So there was this couple that was sitting next to me on my right. They brought their 6 or 7 year old kid to see this movie.
Yeah, I don't know if that's right.
And when I saw I saw the sex scene in the cell, I was like, I literally wanted to turn to the guy and be like, "Why did you bring your kid?"
Did they at least cover the kid's eyes or no?
I couldn't tell. I was just too busy watching the movie. But, anyways,
and it's the first look too that they released of the with the close up of Harley and Joaquin and Arthur's faces. When it was the first look that they dropped, it's that scene. I've seen so many people be like, "I can't look at this first look the same again."
But I'll say, but I actually agree with Toby. I don't think Lady Gaga was very well written for this film. She's good in it. Like, I'll give it that. And I also agree with Kieran. She's not fully developed in this movie. And what you guys were saying about, like, is possibly Harley a figment of Arthur's imagination? Like, my brain kept thinking for a second, like, whenever she got access to all these things, like, I kept thinking, how did she get there? Like, how was she able to have access to get there? There's no way humanly possible that someone like her would be able to do that. Like, no possible way.
Yeah. It just, that was a big part of the movie where I was like, there was moments where I just didn't buy it, and it took me out of the movie a little bit. That was one of the big moments where I was like, I don't buy this.
That's when when it's just like, you know, like those movies where it's just like they just completely just take the logic and throw it all out the window.
Madam Web?
No, not that.
Madam Web just keeps catching straight.
What I'm trying to say by that is, like, they just throw all logic out the window.
Yeah.
Like, by this, this was the point. Like, whenever Harley Quinn just like kept accessing herself into certain things, everything, like, it just kept grating on my nerves. Like, it kept grating on my nerves to a point where it's just like, no, I can't do this.
Well,
I mean, sure, it's like, you might think I'm an idiot for saying that because I enjoyed the movie Trap, that has also a lot of logical issues.
I was about to say the same thing.
Because Trap has so much logic problems, but that's a film where it's like you have to buy into it. Like,
you have to suspend disbelief. Just turn your brain off.
That's the one where it's like you got to suspend disbelief. What's the disbelief with this movie? Like, how is Harley able to get herself into these places? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just, they could have, if they had something with like bribery or something to kind of explain it away, I maybe would have accepted it. But it's just one of those things where the movie's smarter than this, and I can't buy into this because this is dumb for what
like,
this movie is.
Not like what I signed up for. Like, this isn't what I signed up for. This Harley Quinn randomly being able to get into places without anybody spotting her.
Yeah, it was pretty. Like, it was dumb. It was dumb.
If a cop or somebody was actually smart enough, they would have spotted her. But
they say that she said that they let her in, which is where I was like,
call immediate bull crap on that.
Exactly. That's why I was like, no,
they did not.
No.
Well, like, as far as suspending disbelief too, the courtroom scene is another one where I kind of just had to shut it off because I'm thinking to myself, there's no way a judge would let these antics go on for this long without having consent. There's no way.
That's another. That's
especially such a high profile case.
Grated on my nerves.
Yeah, same.
So, but before you get back into those comments, Zach, I have to head out of here. It was nice to meet both of you guys. Before I get out of here, though, I want to know real quickly, who's your favorite Jokers, though?
Heath.
Yeah.
If I was speaking on the first one, Joaquin, but nope, I got to say Heath Ledger.
Well, he's not the Joker.
If I was speaking on the first film,
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
If I was speaking on the first one, it's Joaquin, but now in general, after seeing this film, it's Heath Ledger.
What about
or
you,
Mark
Kieran?
Hamill if we can go that route. I love
That's
Mark
what I was
Hamill.
I can go Mark Hamill. Yeah,
I always say Mark
I
Hamill.
love him too.
Yeah, Heath Ledger for me. Heath Ledger for me is fantastic, but I think Jack Nicholson works for that time period, and I think he definitely was a fantastic performance as well.
Yeah,
But no,
I like Jack
Heath was
my number one.
amazing.
I always go Mark Hamill, but honorable mention to Cameron Monaghan from Gotham. He did a good job for me. He's also one of my favorites. But I gotta head out of here. It was nice to meet you too, Zach. Always a pleasure. Appreciate
you
you
too, man. And your link will be down below in the description for the channel.
Pleasure.
So
thanks. Nice to meet you
Take
guys.
care, man.
Have a blessed night.
You too. All right, let's continue here. We got Toxic Gamer saying, I think the ending would have worked if it was a DC movie that wasn't titled Joker, and also if it wasn't someone that was just a random guy and an actual developed character that follows Arthur through the entire movie. That could have been a good twist, but it was just some guy. Yeah, I agree.
We talked about that earlier, and I was just like when I saw it was just, I was like when I saw that guy just come on frame, I was like, do I know you? Like,
I know, right? I was like,
scene in this movie.
There was a couple moments in the background where he was there, but like he never made an impression on me.
Yeah, but he never made an appearance like when he was talking with Arthur.
Yeah,
like, that was the thing. Like, if it was that guy that he was talking to beforehand, like that was actually kind of friends with him in prison, that might have made more sense for sure. Or like I said before, if his imagination, like when Harley Quinn shot him, would have done the trick. But no, they decided to go the dumb route and just make some random guy murder him.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Dark Movie says there was definitely some musical aspects of it that was decent, but mostly dragged it down. I think we all mostly agree with that.
It dragged it down for me, yeah.
Dark Movie says definitely put on an accent in that scene. Probably the court scene that I was referring to. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, when the courtroom scene, he sounds like a hillbilly.
Yeah, I was confused. I didn't understand why he was doing that.
I didn't. I did like it. I think he was just trying to
put that a little bit on in the first film in certain aspects. Like he did put that a little bit on in the first film, but it wasn't so overabundant.
Yeah,
like when he has the makeup on, it got so overabundant.
But that's where I think the movie reinforces that idea of he's trying to be the Joker again. This is something he did one time that people liked, and that's the reason he's known. So he's trying to put it on again, and he just can't do it the same way. I think that's what they were trying to go for. But Kieran, what were you saying? I'll let you finish your thought there.
I was just going to say that, yeah, it definitely did stand out for, the reasons that you were just saying about how he's trying to be, the kind of be the Joker and kind of, get people to, follow him. And also, I think what was interesting is that was the only time that he ever, questioned a witness was when he did the voice with Gary. So I think that was, again, another aspect of it where ultimately he was trying to win over the crowd. They were all probably going to be they were going to laugh with him and stuff like that. But no, at the time I was thinking this just seems really off, and as we said, it wasn't the best accent either.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, I agree. It says also the whole time Gary's scene, one person in my theater was just dying laughing the whole time he was on screen. It would have been better if he walks to the visitor and it was Harvey Dent as Two-Face. I'm guessing that's a continuation of the ending. Theories out there. Who do you think the guest was, and do you think there was a guest at all?
I might think that the guy that killed him might have been the guest. I'm thinking that, but then at the same time, I'm thinking in my brain, he can't be the guest. Like,
yeah,
it's like he was still in the same prison that Arthur was in.
Yeah.
We have no idea what the guest who the guest was, and I'm glad they kind of just left that up in the air, because after he was murdered, I was like, I don't even want to know who it is now. Like,
yeah,
it was her. If it could have been Harley Quinn, don't care. Could have been Harvey Dent, don't care. Like, you already just ruined yourself. Like,
yeah, I've got a theory. If it was Harley Quinn, I wouldn't have been pleased, because I think that ended with them on the stairs. Kind of worked.
He broke the illusion, and thus she's out. I think that was the end of that.
Yeah.
And again, there might not have been a guest, but if there was, and I know this is probably incredibly dramatic, I thought it was going to be Bruce Wayne, because obviously we had him in the first one.
He
But
would
that
have
was
been
the
11.
only. Yeah, I know, but just to see in the prison. But that was the only. There was a little part of me, and then I just thought, what am I talking about? That's why I didn't explain it in my review. I was just like, I'm going to keep that joke. But now I'm on the stream here, I can say so. If comment section want to call me ridiculous, then they can do. But there was just a part of me where
I actually have another thing to say about that. Another part of me that's thinking about this, like when he said you have a visitor. Another part of me was thinking it was a setup to get him killed.
That's what I think. Because the guard kept walking and left him alone.
It was just a setup.
Yeah, I think the fact that the guard kept walking and left him alone, that is the indicator to me that I think somehow, somewhere, the guy who killed him was in cahoots with the guards, because the guards never liked him anyways. And there was that kind of moment at the end where Arthur is kind of sitting there watching TV, and the cop comes and like bends his hat to him, which I thought in the moment was like somehow he gained respect. I didn't quite get that, but I think the hat indicator was to the guy that it's time to go, and then they pulled Arthur out, left him alone in that hallway so that guy could kill him. And I think the guards were in on it. I don't think there was a visitor at all. That's my theory.
It definitely. I'll just say right now, it definitely was a setup.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, even if it was a setup, good job, but still did not work for the movie itself.
Yep. Deltaic is saying, "I'm the Joker, baby." Well, there you go. We found the real one.
And then there's quite a bit of comments that's just me. We don't need to hear those now.
I'm going through. I'm looking for the ones that are applicable. Toxic Gamer says it ruins what these movies are because they're not Joker movies, they're Arthur movies. Well, I think they were always Arthur movies, and I think
they always were. Yeah,
and I think even if you look at the title Joker Folie Deux, it's like a shared delusion, and the Joker is that shared delusion. Joker, a shared delusion. It's literally telling us in the title that Joker was a shared delusion. It was never there.
Yeah. And I do agree with you, Zach, because what is the first Joker technically about? Arthur Fleck.
Yeah.
It's about Arthur Fleck and how he was as a person before, like, everybody just started to treat him like crap. And like, he seemed like a good guy, like, but with a mental health problem. Like,
yeah, that's the thing.
But everyone started to treat him like crap, and you feel bad. That's why he became the way he was. So it's like, this is not just a Joker movie. This is Arthur's story. Like, you want us to feel why he became the way he was.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think they had a nice balance as well of this idea of Folie Deux, meaning about Harley, about him and Harley and Harley, but also about Joker and Arthur Fleck. I think that's the direction that everyone just presumed.
Yeah.
Everyone just presumed that was what the direction was going to be. Is that they both counteract their craziness, but actually, obviously, when you watch the movie and it's being developed, you kind of go, well, no, that's the two. They're kind of, again, massive contradicted characters. So I think that was a very clever title as well for that reason, as well as obviously having Harley and Joker, which just counteract each other's craziness.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, actually. Toxic Gamer says it also feels like Todd Phillips was flipping off Warner Brothers. I mean, in some ways, I think the ending was very much them being like, this is it. We're not coming back. You can't make us. Like, that's how I felt about the ending, was the dude's dead. Joaquin's dead. Like, that's it. You can't do another one.
In my opinion, I felt like the ending was just a middle finger to the first film. Like, it felt like Todd Phillips was just giving you the middle finger.
Right. I don't feel that strongly about it. There's also, like, people kind of act like Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips, they went out and they like secretly made this movie, and this is the first time Warner Brothers is seeing it. Like, they send in tapes. They go through the process with the studio. Like it's not like Warner Brothers didn't know what they were getting. I think they just believed in it. I think they went, okay, you had a crazy different idea for a comic book movie with the first Joker that paid off well. We trust your instincts, and who knows, like maybe on paper, like this script was phenomenal because, like we're talking about, there are things here that are working. There are things here that are worth talking about, that are interesting and fascinating. Some of the execution didn't work though, so I don't know. I don't know if necessarily he was flipping off Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers probably would have caught that a little bit when they were given notes. Who knows? Maybe they have their heads so far up their butts they actually don't catch things like that. But I personally wouldn't go that far to say it flips off Warner Brothers, but I do think it's very much like we're done. We're not coming back, and you can't make us.
I think it's interesting as well how the potential ending. It's very interesting to see the current structure of DC and the direction that they're going with all these Elseworld stories and how they're going to potentially have all of these different characters. Potentially, I think Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix pride themselves in this being so different, not connected to anything. They potentially wanted to get out of that before it all started to go on a little bit crazy with DC, with all of these heroes and villains running around. They probably wanted to protect, because these are unique within the genre. I felt that with the first one. I feel the exact same with this one, is that they're unique in a genre where so many movies are coming out, 3-4 every year. So I think they tried to protect the uniqueness of this series with that ending.
Yeah, and I do think there's merit to be said about this film. I think we'll be talking about this film a lot more and for more years than we're going to be talking about Blue Beetle. Whereas Blue Beetle was a fine movie. It was safe.
Yeah.
It was kind of generic. But this is like so crazy out there for what these kind of movies are.
Yeah.
That I think it's going to be in the conversation for a really long time. Frankie Make World says, I think Joker 2 is a good movie, but a bad Joker movie. I think people are being too mean. I think that's a big reason for a lot of the hate is people are projecting their ideas of what a Joker movie should be, and they're not following the through line of what this Joker parts 1 and 2 have been. And I'm not saying they can't like it. If they even follow the through line, like of course it still may not work for everybody. But I think the criticism of like, well, that's not what the Joker is. That's not what the Joker does. I think that's you bringing your own personal projections to a film, and you're not really talking about the movie itself. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's different perspectives, different ideas, and the different direction that they want to take. We don't know that in a couple of years' time there'll be a Joker movie with all them stereotypes in that feels like a Joker movie. But this one decided to go a different direction, and there's so many iterations of one thing. We've seen that with Spider-Man and Batman and all these different heroes. It's that different perspectives, different ideas. People like it, people don't. But a lot of people potentially will think that if you release a Joker movie with all them stereotypes, then they'll do a lot better. But we've got to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, it's very much like the Last Jedi talk, like I was talking about, where it's like not my Luke Skywalker. Like I don't like what they did with Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, or at least like I don't like a lot of what they did. There's some things that I do like, but I don't reject that as like not Luke. I just add the criticisms into the film itself. How come it doesn't work in the story for me personally? It's not just, well, that's not how I think of Luke, so I don't like it automatically.
Yeah, my consistent opinion with The Last Jedi is that the director, that he always goes in with a different idea on the genre. Rian Johnson did that with Knives Out. He does he looks at the genre and flips it on its head, but it's also Star Wars. It's not like it's an original sci-fi film. Star Wars is massive. The fan base is massive. So I think I've always had that opinion. But no, Luke Skywalker, that's not Luke. Just moaning around on an island. That's not him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. We got Frankie Make-A-World saying someone said Joker 2 was worse than Batman and Robin, which I disagree with strongly. I am with you, my friend. I disagree with that strongly. It's
I agree.
not worse than Batman and Robin. Dr. Kieran says, imagine if they did a Batman tease at the end of that, could have been cool. No, it would have been dumb because the Bruce Wayne in Joker 2019, I believe, I want to say, is at least 10 years old. I think he's younger. He might be like 8 years old when we see him when Arthur goes and visits him at the Wayne Manor and like puts a smile on his face. It's kind of creepy. So if this is 2 years later, he would have been like at the most 11, maybe 12 years old. Like you couldn't do it. It would have been dumb. It wouldn't have worked.
I have a big smile on my face. The fact that somebody else potentially thought that there was going to be a Batman teaser. It wasn't just me. So thanks, Toxic Gamer. At least I'm not the only one. I'm proud. I'm pleased with that comment.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Let's see here. Frankie says I think Joker 2 would have been better received if it wasn't a Joker movie. Oh, I think it would have been better received if it wasn't a Joker movie. That's interesting because you only get this because we had the first one named Joker, and you only have this one because the first one named Joker made $1 billion and only made $1 billion because it was named Joker. So you've got to backtrack a lot in order to get to this not being Joker, and we wouldn't have this movie at all if it wasn't for the first Joker. So that is interesting to think about, but it's just it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work, and no one would go see it if it wasn't named Joker.
No.
It probably would have fallen very flat.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you seen it? What T says? Yeah, the times were so different. No one talked about mental health in the 80s at all. Okay, so that's referring back to something that we were talking about with Luke. Yeah. Have you seen it? What T says? I still didn't think it worked without the music. You do. I think the musical sequences, if you take them out, first of all, I think you got a tighter runtime. I think you have a better pace. I don't think the overall story is helped because I still think the story is still pretty thin. But I feel like the musical sequences annoyed more than delighted me. So at least those annoyances would be taken out. What do you think? Do you think it's better without the musical sequences?
Yeah, personally, I think, like I said earlier, I think the uniqueness of this film was the music. So if that wasn't going to work, I think a lot of people would be, okay, I don't know what I need to sort of enjoy about this one. I felt like every pivotal moment in the movie was celebrated with a song or kind of stopped. It felt like very stop-start with a little music bit in the beginning. Like I said, the music was, worked with the grandeur that Joker was trying to possess, and how, Harley Quinn was trying to lean into that. So I think that aspect of it worked. But like I said, I think a lot of people were going and saying this is a musical, this is going to be interesting. The fact that it didn't work for a lot of people, ultimately that was the defining thing where probably people are not going to like it.
Yeah. I do think in the end the musical aspect of it was its greatest the weakness. I think the musical aspect is probably the biggest first out the gate misstep that they made when going with this movie. I still applaud them. I still would rather have them try it and have it turn out this way than not do it at all, because it was such a unique and interesting idea from the start when I heard it, but it just didn't work.
I'd be very interested to see if any other character's film could have been a musical. I can't think off the top of my head whether any other character could have worked with music, because I think the possibilities were endless with Joker, because a lot of it is more mental and in his head. So I don't think, I think the genre of musicals works with Joker better than any character you could have done for any comic book. You can't have the X-Men singing and dancing, or Spider-Man singing as he's swinging around. So I think it worked for the Joker because of the way that he is just so crazy.
But I'll tell you one thing, with the cinema score, with the Rotten Tomatoes score, with the box office that we're seeing, you won't see a comic book musical maybe ever again. like this was such wasted potential. If this had hit, if this is fired, it could have been like a whole new dawn for comic book movie. And you know what? Maybe it's a good thing this thing failed, because do I want every comic book movie to be a musical? No, no, I don't. But it's one of those things where they ain't gonna try that again for a while. You're not gonna see this kind of ambitious, bold decision maybe ever again in your lifetime. Maybe never again.
Definitely.
Which is kind of unfortunate in some ways. The Laser says, "Hey guys, Joker 2 sucked." and 3 people walked out of the movie on my screening. Well, I'm sorry you thought it sucked, man. As we've talked about for almost 2 hours now, I don't think it sucked. I do think there's merit to it, but yeah, definitely in some ways a disappointment. Did you have anyone walk out? I mentioned that I had 2 people walk out the minute Joaquin started singing. Did you have anyone walk out of your theater?
I didn't have anybody walk out, but when the movie was finished, a gentleman working at the cinema asked for my opinion. I said that I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and he said no, neither was I. So it was almost like, okay, thank you for telling it. I bet he watched us all go in. He was the one that scanned our tickets. I bet he just had the biggest smile on his face, going, "Oh, what? Get ready for this one." So no, nobody walked out of what I saw.
The laser continues saying Joker 2 felt like Todd Phillips made the movie bad and trolls the audience on purpose to show Warner Brothers that not everything needs a sequel, let alone a movie that was going to be a one-off. Also, nothing happens in Joker 2, and it was very boring, and someone threw their hands at the screen and walked out. Seemed like no one liked the musical numbers. Well, I will say that I do not think, and I saw this actually going around, I think after it premiered at Venice, I think this started going around that Todd Phillips made this one bad on purpose and trolled the fans. I don't think he made this one bad. I don't. I think that he truly did have ambitions, and I think that he put a lot of effort and tried to do a follow-up to a movie he never intended to do a follow-up on. And he tried to do it creatively. He tried to do it in a unique new way. He didn't just want to do the same kind of thing over again, in my opinion. Some people would disagree with that. I don't feel like this was the same kind of thing over again. This felt different. This felt unique from the first. I just I don't think it's what the fans wanted, and I think he put his own ambitions over what the general audiences would want. And I think in some ways that was a big mistake on his part, because even though he's a creative, even though he's the creator of this, I think he should have had a little bit more connectiveness to the fans and thinking of how this would play over for them, because it's not what anyone thought they were going to get with this movie.
No, I hope that's not the case. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what comes out over the next few weeks, because I think the directors are getting a lot more, frustrated with production companies getting involved. But it is, if Todd Phillips is, made that film, it's done incredibly well, as we've mentioned, all the incredible accolades it's had at box office and award season. But if it's like that call that you're dreading, saying we need you to make a sequel, and you're like, okay, you're already going in it with that sort of negative mindset. I have watched this film, the first film, many times, and I love that first film, and I always persisted the idea is that it should be kept just as one movie. So as soon as this was announced, you're almost your head's going a million to different directions about where the story's going to be. But no, I don't think he'd consciously make a bad movie, because he doesn't want to spoil his reputation. He doesn't want to let the fans down, and I think a lot of these people didn't like the film, but I don't think that is particularly Todd Phillips' fault. But the laser comment did make me smile as well. I read that earlier, because through their hands at the screen, I mean, with a front row, I could just envision somebody like running down the stairs to do it. Yeah, so I don't know whether they were right at the front. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's funny. No, but like you also have to think, for Todd Phillips, what does he gain by making a bad movie on purpose? And there's nothing in here that really makes me feel like they didn't try. So I reject that. I don't think that this is bad on purpose. I don't think this is meant to troll the fans or anything like that. I just think it's a vision he had that isn't clicking. And that's just, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you can't predict sometimes you think Star Wars is going to flop and it becomes the biggest cultural phenomenon franchise of all time. Right? So sometimes you just don't know when you're in the middle of making it.
It's also his vision that's not worked, but on also a massive scale. It's a sequel. Yeah, it's a comic book movie. So, if this was done in a very sort of low budget, type of indie movie, then a lot of people would go, okay, I didn't like it, but I respected the vision. The fact that his vision wasn't that well received on a bigger scale, you're almost, the bigger the scale, the bigger the fall is probably the best way of putting it. The shortened way of putting it.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. Trevia Smolka says this movie was bad in my opinion. They felt wasted they all felt wasted in my opinion because the story sucked and plus that ending was garbage. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna sit here and like put all my eggs in a basket of defending this movie. Like, I don't think the story was phenomenal. I think it was very thin. I think the performances by Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga really did carry most of the film. I really do. But I can agree with you. The ending, I can't get on board with that ending. I don't know. I just it does not click with me. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I know neither do I, but I've also watched a lot of reviews, and I'm not. Nobody likes the ending. I'd like to just see one review or watch one review where they said no, I did like the ending, and then provide reasoning because I love talking movies.
I have a review for you. Koi Jeandrew.
Okay, yeah, I know who he is. I know who he is.
He has a channel of his own. You've probably seen him on like Christian Harloff and Real Rejects and all that. He has a channel of his own. He put out a spoiler video. He likes the ending.
Okay.
He likes the ending.
I respect people's opinions. I love talking about movies with different people because we're watching the same thing, but also having different opinions. As long as we're respectful, that's fine. But I kind of want to see somebody on the opposite end that liked it. So I'm going to check that out after.
Yeah, check out Koi's because he expresses his opinion very articulately, and he's always great at doing that. I don't agree with him, even after hearing how I don't agree with what he says, but he's very well spoken on his side. So if you want to hear someone talk positively about the ending, go watch that video.
He's great. He's so funny as well.
Yeah, I love him. Have you seen what T says? She clearly set all of that up because everyone in Gotham is corrupt and she was rich. I'm assuming you're talking about Lady Gaga's character, Harley Quinn. She clearly set all that up. Probably when she goes into the room and all that stuff and gets herself into the facility. I just wish the movie could have dove into that a little bit more. Just had that be a little bit more apparent. Because right now it's just a guessing game, read between the lines kind of guessing game, and I wish there was a little bit more evidence to support it.
Yeah, I think they could have took a bit more time. Potentially took out a musical sequence, or even not. You can add a bit of runtime. I don't think it would have took long, but it would have stopped the speculating and us kind of reading between the lines. I will rewatch this movie again, with a different set of friends to kind of get their opinions on it. So I'm going to be very in them type of moments. I'm going to be very particular about exactly why she's there or whether I missed anything. But for me, I feel like it was an opportunity that was just wasted.
And you can fast forward the musical sequences when you watch it at home. So.
I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
There you go. There's a positive. Dr. Kurt Affair says superior to the first. So there you go. Someone who liked it more than the first. I think he's the only one in the world that I've seen anyways who liked it more than the first. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad you liked it more than the first.
Yeah,
we need someone positive in the chat. We need someone who liked it that much. Trevor Smoka says, me and my family also reviewed this movie on my channel and we gave it a big F. I do like your family's reviews. They're really cute. Question, why did Todd Phillips even make this movie? Because he felt like he didn't want to make this sequel. I think that the rest of these questions don't relate to this one. So we'll start with this one. Why did Todd Phillips even make this movie? He got a big payday. They gave him $200 million. And you know what? I do think that there was a part of Todd Phillips that felt challenged and probably liked the challenge. I made $1 billion. It won an Oscar. I did something different in the comic book genre. I pushed it. I made lightning in a bottle. Can I do that again? How do I do that again? What's something that hasn't been done? A musical. Right? Like I do think Todd Phillips, I think there was more than just money behind it. I do think that he, as a creative, saw this as a challenge, saw this as something that was intriguing and interesting to him to figure out. So, I mean, truth of the matter is we don't know Todd Phillips. We don't know what he thinks. We don't know how he acts. We don't know what he goes through in his thinking process. So I could be 100% wrong. But I find it hard to believe that he would just make this movie when he didn't really want to make it. Because if he had said no, they would have found another director to do Joker 2. They would have found some other avenue.
I respect the man with his vision. I don't think a lot of directors now, particularly in the superhero space, is allowed to do their full vision. So I think Todd Phillips absolutely deserved that opportunity. we've all said tonight that potentially that didn't work as well, and that's why this movie is not getting a lot of praise. But I do think Todd Phillips deserves the praise for being somebody who is gone. Yeah, he could have made Joker 2 exactly the same as the first one because it worked, but he hasn't. He's done something completely different, added a level of uniqueness, and respect to him. Like we said, we don't know him personally. We don't know potentially if there was some background problems. It'd be interesting to see if that comes out in the next few weeks. But no, I absolutely respect Todd Phillips, and I wish that a lot of people did that a little bit more, because it could create so many interesting discussions about how cinema's moving forward, which I know is that's a big conversation for another day, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, we got Trevor saying suspension of disbelief could not only go so far if it makes sense, but this movie made no sense. The ending was garbage and made no sense, whatever whatsoever, and felt like a waste of time, in my opinion. I'm not going to argue anyone on the ending. If you want to feel that way with the ending, I'm going to jump in and join you, my friend, because I dislike this ending a lot. It really does a lot of goodwill for me.
May I ask a question? Yeah. Sorry, in terms of did the ending drop it down? And I know that you do your strong recommend, weak recommend. Did it drop it, or was it just an aspect? So
no,
it
was a weak recommend until the ending, because what happened with the ending was for me, it's like when I watch the movie, it's like, okay, I'm taking things as they come, and then I kind of analyze them when it's over, right? But like when I'm sitting there during the experience, it's like, okay. And I was already up and down on the movie, right? I'm like, okay, I really like this stuff with Arthur and everything, but the stuff with Lady Gaga is kind of underdeveloped. The trial stuff's kind of dry. So it was kind of up and down for me. But what the ending did was, all right, so this is the end of the experience. When I look back as a whole at the experience, was it worth it to get to this ending? No, it wasn't. That's the power. That's why it dropped down to a weak not recommend. Yeah, because it would have been a weak recommend up until that ending. I was like, this is a weak recommend. Like, this isn't a terrible movie. It's got some good stuff in it, but there's also some stuff that isn't so great that I don't think people should rush out for. But I think it's worth your time. And then that ending was like, no, it's not.
That's the power of an ending. That's the power of an ending. That's the final thing that people will remember and very much define their opinions on. A lot of movies which we consider to be absolutely incredible has that final moment where it just sticks with you. So the fact that didn't work for a lot of people massively dropped it down. It didn't for me, because I was a little bit more negative on it, but I definitely felt that could have really dropped it down into quite low territory for a lot of people.
Yeah. So it did that for me. Did that for me. Have you seen that with T says there was no guest? I agree with you, man. I really don't think there was any guest. I think it was a complete setup. Let's see here. Trevor's saying, question, I'm curious if Joaquin Phoenix wanted this ending for a garbage movie. I mean, maybe he could have collaborated with Todd Phillips and be like, look, man, I don't want to come back. Can you please kill me? Can you just find a way to kill me? Can you, that extra back there, can he kill me? Can you get that extra to kill me at the end of the movie? Hey, extra, you want some extra money? Say some lines. Come here, kid. Do you want people to think you're Heath Ledger? Come here, kid. No, I could very well be the case, but I hope not.
I didn't mind him dying. It was just who killed him. That's it. May, if he died, okay, but it was just the sequence of events leading up to that. So I don't mind a character dying. I don't mind if Joaquin Phoenix wanted that to happen, because they would have gone, okay, this is what the actor wants. Let's try and get this in the story. But no, the execution of it was really, really poor, and that's what made the whole ending bad.
Yeah, I agree. It does so. It just does so bad. Trevia says, question, with this movie bombing like a brick, does this mean we are done realistic crap superhero movies and go back to say, I don't know, have heroes be heroes and no more villains? I think that you won't see another Joker 3. I don't think it means that you'll never see a realistic superhero movie. And it doesn't mean that crappy superhero movies are gone either, because you're going to get crappy superhero movies. It just happens. But I think the only guarantee here is you won't see a Joker 3, and you won't see any more musical superhero films. That's what I think are the guarantees from this bombing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that absolutely. We're gonna have, really poor superhero movies, Craven the Hunter being one of them. So I definitely think we have got a lot of potential negatives coming out.
Yeah.
But the last part of that question, I think having no more villains, I think again there's an audience for villain-based stories. We've seen that with the 2 seasons of Loki, which I enjoyed both of them. So I think a lot of people will like to see villain stories, but as you said, no more Joker, no more, musical superhero films, but counting out villain stories, I don't think that'll be the case, because a lot of people will really enjoy a different villain look.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And like, I think the Sony movies are a little bit different too, because they're being made because they need to make something Spider-Man related every 5 years in order to keep the rights. So they've kind of lent Spider-Man to the MCU. So all they have now are the characters that are the villains. So they're going to keep pumping those out just to keep the rights. And so they don't care about quality. That's my opinion on that anyways. All right, we'll take a couple more, and then we're at the 2-hour mark. So I think that's a good place to kind of end it. I think we've said a lot about this movie. You guys have said a lot about this movie. It's been a fantastic discussion. I've loved it so much. Thank you to all the guests, by the way, that were here. We've got Trevor saying, new question. Speaking of that ending, that reminds me, who was that guy who killed Joaquin Phoenix's Joker? Was that supposed to be another Joker? Because that makes no sense to me, in my opinion. That's what I think the indication's supposed to be, is that Arthur Fleck created the mantle of the Joker, and now that mantle is going to be passed down to all these different people. I personally don't like that. I'm not on board with that. But I think that was what he was going for.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it's a mantle now. It's kind of a figure that needs to be represented, and they've now got a first for killing somebody. So yeah, I don't think you'll see that being actioned on in terms of another movie, as we've just mentioned. But I definitely do think that that was the kind of the goal that they were going for.
Yeah, with that, guys, I think we're good with the conversation. We're 2 hours in. I think that's feels like a good place to end it right now. So thank you, Kieran, for being here. Thank you, everyone, Ace and Luke and Michael and everyone that jumped on to talk, and you guys for being here, giving us your conversation in the chat. Look, Joker Folie à Deux, it came, it went. We were highly anticipating it. It wasn't what we all wanted it to be. For some of us, it was worse than what we wanted it to be. But for me, it's a movie that honestly I think is it might age well. It might, just with how I've been thinking about it over these past couple of days, talking with you guys and just getting deeper into the story and the characters. There's a lot here. There's a lot here that I think is worth talking about. I'm glad it exists, even if I don't love it, even if I maybe some days don't like it. I'm glad they took the venture. I'm glad they tried it, because it's given us some great conversations. So yeah, Kieran, where can they find you? Just let them know before we head out here.
So my name is Kieran. I'm from the Film Review Central YouTube channel. I've been doing this now for just close to 2 years. I absolutely love it. So yeah, find me on YouTube, Film Review Central, where I hope to make the conversation about film and TV just sound a little bit more interesting. And hope to see you guys over there. And just want to say a pleasure and a privilege to be on the show today. It was a real dream come true to be on here. I've loved Zach's content for such a long time. I had him on my channel as well, which was an absolute blast. So to be here, it was absolutely fantastic. And if you've not subscribed to Zach, please make sure that you do that, because he's a fantastic YouTuber, and I hope to be on the channel in the future sometime soon. So thank you very much, guys.
Honor is all mine, man. Thank you so much for the kind words. And yeah, all the links for our guests are going to be down in the description below. I'm going to add them right after the show. Thank you guys so much for being here, talking Joker Folie à Deux. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry. If you did like it, I'm happy for you. And I'm just glad we had the conversation. I'm glad we had the discussion. Don't just watch movies, talk movies, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.